The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.
What's up, everybody? I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
And this is the Magic Mike Show, episode 428. Mr. Somich.
Huzzah!
Boom, we're back at Gulfstream Park. And we didn't get scared off from the late pick 5 for that opening big weekend for this current. Well, I guess it's not championship meet yet, but the late pick 5 didn't work out for us last time. We're coming back on Wednesday. We're going to run it back, and you are very aggressive with this card.
Yeah, it's weird that late pick 5. We talked a lot about pace and how important it was to those races, and then we had a horse go nutty in the sprint, which we both were singling because we thought there was lone speed, and I think it was the 4 just blitzed out and went crazy. And then if you look at the last race where we both used that 7 that was 20-1 on the morning line, the 3 horse had never done anything like that. Had a 66 early time form rating and was a presser against our 7 that really cost the 7 the trip we wanted. So it's tough because sometimes on paper you see it a certain way, and then on the racetrack a jockey gets a different idea and tries to change it up. I don't blame the 3's jockey because it was probably the only way that horse wins the race. I like the idea of being aggressive and trying to take it to him. It ended up costing our 7, and that 3 I think ran last too, so not great there either. But it's tough when you're like, okay, pace, and then just completely plays out differently on the track.
Didn't work out for us there. I will say it was nice. The stakes race, the Wait a While Stakes, that was a good one. We were pretty all over that. We both liked the Todd Pletcher horse, Juniper Marshmallow, which, coming down to 5-1 off odds off of 8-1 morning line, but still was a great price on a horse that we didn't. I mean, we were playing that one as much for anything as the price. Like, this shouldn't be this low. In Malimu with Le Peru out of Tongaroo, the dam, got second in her North American debut. Watch out for those 2 horses moving forward as 3-year-olds. They're both going to be very deadly at the Gulfstream Park 3-year-old filly turf races starting up pretty soon here.
Yeah, they showed Malimu before the race working with, I think it was Kentucky Ghost, who's a pretty accomplished horse over the turf as well. So interesting connections there, interesting work partner there for Malimu. So that kind of gives you an idea of where they think that horse is going to end up. Excuse me. On this specific sequence that you mentioned, I kind of got aggressive. Before we jump into the actual races and the handicapping, I think we should at least talk about the sequencing of this and kind of ticket structure here, because this one's interesting. In a couple of these races, the longest shots I liked were like 6-1, 5-1, somewhere in that range. And so when going through it, you can put a ticket together. You can kind of construct it where you're going 3 or 4 deep in these legs, but you're using all these horses that are sub 5-1. Long run, that's going to cost you. You may hit tickets for like $300, $400 for a 50-cent ticket that it costs you $80, $90, which is great to turn a 4-1 profit. But you're going to lose more than you win in those spots, especially if it ends up chalking out, or if in one of those races that long shot that you just thought was completely out of the blue, no way that horse wins, you end up losing that spot. So I kind of decided here, I'm going to trust my opinions in these more. So I'm playing a very short $1 ticket, costs $24, and a $5 ticket that costs $40, and just saying, hey, this is a sequence I want to be right in because the prices aren't quite there for it to be able to balloon up to, a $2,000, $3,000 ticket for just a 50-cent denomination.
And I ended up, I learned my lesson last time not to single a speed horse. I really should have learned my lesson with Oscar Performance in the Breeders' Cup Mile. As soon as the speed horse comes out of the gate and just stumbles, you're like, well, just rip that ticket right up. You bring up a good point, though. I'm looking through my ticket right now, and I have at least an 8-1 in every leg except the first one, and I went with a 6-1 there. But the prices are interesting. There's especially the, I think it'll be the feature race where you've got 2 Todd Pletcher horses and his former assistant, Jonathan Thomas, has a horse in there. And they're 3-1, 3-1, 5-2, 2-1, something like that. So you have to really split that one up. So we'll see how we played that one. But I wanted to congratulate Aaron for continuing to trust One Pride, Lions Nation, continuing to win, continuing to make money for Aaron betting it. If you catch Dude 2 Bet Dude 2 Bet Daily on Sunday, I showed up and bragged about my Navy hit, and then didn't have a best bet, thankfully, because the Vikings. I was like, hey, maybe the Vikings will win this one. No, that was a bad game for the Vikings. Great game for the Lions. Actually, what I predicted would happen was correct. Just I switched the teams around. I got a little dyslexic on that. That's my fault. But if the Detroit Lions win out and the Vikings lose out, the Lions win the division. I don't really understand how that's possible, nor how is it possible the Titans play from the beginning of the season is still in play, Mike?
Yeah, that was kind of nice. We're sitting at what I think is 7-6 now on the Titans. Under 9.5 all of a sudden has a ton of life. They have the Chargers and they have the Cowboys left on their schedule. They have Houston, so they'll win that one. But that last game is against Jacksonville, and Jacksonville just handled them their asses there this week. So we just have to go 2-2 here, and we end up cashing the over on the Giants and the under on the Titans. So hopefully we get that puppy home.
Dr. Tang asking if we'll play Detroit this week. Tell you what, Dr. Tang, I'll tease it. Coming up in a little under 2 hours, Aaron and Papa Dude on Dudes Who Bet Sports. They're going to recap the NFL, and maybe you can ask Aaron then. He'll tell you if he thinks the Lions are a play. But first, Mike, we've got Wednesday's late pick 5 at Gulfstream Park to get into. Riders up. All right, Mike. By the way, I meant to ask you this. Does Lily watch Sesame Street, or did she? Is that something that she does much? No. All right. You remember, though, there was the count. And the count always had the number of the day. The number of the day is 8 because all 5 legs, they each drew 8 horses. I've never seen that before. And also the 8 is Lily's favorite horse with the pink. So the pink horse.
Very true.
It's a very Lily Monday looking at Wednesday. The first leg of the late pick 5 at Gulfstream Park. Race 5 is a 1-mile turf route. 8 males, 3 and up. They've either started for a claiming price of $20K or less, or they're currently in for a $32K tag. Favorite is the number 8, One Night Standards at 3-1. Where'd you go on top?
I thought this was actually a really tough race. You can make a case for probably 5 of these 8 horses that they're legitimate win threats. And you kind of can see that based on the odds board as well. You mentioned the 8, your 3-1 favorite. You got 4-1, 7-2, 9-2, 6-1, 6-1. Really just 2 long shots. I don't think either of them make a ton of sense in this spot. So it's one of those first spots where, like, okay, I have to kind of narrow this down, figure out how I'm going to attack this race, because I'm not going to get a massive price, but you're probably going to get a $10 winner out of this sucker. I went with the 2, Lamplighter Jack on top here. I really like the stretch in the middle of this year where this horse was able to go gate to wire 4 straight times on a synthetic course that was favoring closers during that time. So I like the fact that we were able to hold the speed. The turf races are the big concern here. Obviously, we're going a mile on the turf. Like we mentioned last week, we want to have speed on this course, and this is going to clearly be your horse that is going to try and go gate to wire in this spot. You look back at the race 3 back, that was a Kentucky Downs, kind of a funky situation, went 23-3, 45-3, lost to a horse, Max KO, who is a very good horse, would kind of, I would think would tower over this field. So I'm not going to hold that one against him. You look back in the PPs, the other time we've seen this horse go a mile on the Gulfstream Park turf here was in February of this year. Paco was aboard. Didn't get the lead. And I think that was a concern for me, or a reason why I'm not as worried about that race, because this horse wants the lead, and I think needs to be in the lead. I expect Lamplighter Jack goes to the front out of this 2-post, gets the rail on the first turn, hopefully doesn't look back. The only really horse that I'd be worried about pressing is the 5, but you have enough situations where you've seen Zaya sit off with this 5 horse. I think that's going to be the plan here, is that if you don't get the lead in the first turn, just sit back behind the 2 and kind of hang out. Not much other pace in this spot. So it's really just going to be those 2 that are going to be up front. I'm going to put the 2 Lamplighter Jack on top, but I am going to use the 5 Freedom Matters as my other must use here. I think it's going to be hard to catch either of these 2 turning for home, because the biggest threats are going to be coming from way back. And that's just not what you want to be doing right now in this Gulfstream Park turf course.
I used the 5. That was my top pick here. And, the horses, and if you look at the last 4 turf starts, is a neck away from winning 3 of those. At this distance, 20 tries on the turf, has hit the board 17 times, won 25% of those 5 times. So, that Kentucky Downs race, I went back and watched the replay. It's pretty hard fought. Was good on the front end, so that makes me feel good about the 2, which I didn't use. I think the 2 is going to be bet. I think the 2 is going to get hammered way down, because you're also getting Gaffleone aboard. And I'm very scared of the 2, but I think the 2 is going to be down at a price that I can't really touch if I'm using the 5. The way that my ticket's structured, I went a lot deeper than what you did with yours in different legs. Also, that Kentucky Downs race, 2 next out winners, all cloudy, I think was 3rd, got a 91 buyer for winning at Keeneland. So very good form there. For me, this is Safi. It's Edgar Zayas. They tend to print money at Gulfstream, especially before we start the official champions meet. And they also have the number 3 Parkland in here. Safi and the owners of the 5, they co-own the 3. That's the other horse I went with here. This one loves to bounce around the claiming tag. He's been taken out of the last 3 starts. And actually, the last 4 times the horse was available for a tag, the only 4 times in his career, the horse was claimed each time, all by higher percentage trainers. Safi, DeBona, Crichton, Reynald Yanez, I don't really know, but had a 20, I see 24%. That's pretty good, even from a small sample size. I love the fact that Safi runs him back protected. He's been claimed 3 straight times, and in the last 4 times, he was available, he was always taken. So I was like, no, we're going to hold on to this one. And by the way, we're getting Irad freaking Ortiz Jr. to ride this horse. You look at who's ridden, aside from JJ Hernandez, no, that's Brian Hernandez. Aside from Joel Rosario, one time, there's never been a jockey nearly of this caliber aboard this horse before. So I think it's 6-1. The other Safi, I think here is pretty dangerous. And if the 2 and the 5 hook up, I think this is the horse that'll be sitting there about third or fourth place in mid pack and ready to pounce on them. So for me, I went with the 2 Safis and the 2 Mercy Man Racing horses, the 3 and the 5.
It's interesting. You said that you think the 2 is going to get hammered. I think this 3 is going to get hammered. I think the 3 is going to go off pretty short here. I would guess, well, I shouldn't say pretty short. My guess is around 3-1, somewhere in that range, about half of what the morning line is sitting at, because Irad is up for Safi here because of the claiming like you discussed. And because that race on March 24th over this Gulfstream Park turf course, or over that Gulfstream Park turf course, was impressive. I mean, able to get the job done, stalking from just off the pace. 3 is a concern for me because this 3 is going to get a very good trip, and it's going to be whether or not the 3 is good enough turning for home, and if Irad's able to find a lane on the inside, because you got to assume this 3 is going to be pocketed up right behind the 2, and we'll see if he's good enough down the lane to get it done. I use the 8 as well in my dollar ticket here. One Night Standards. This is one of those where I respect the heck out of the connections here with Maker and with Saez. Also, just it's a massive drop in my mind based on where we were running to where we're going here. You're talking about Kentucky Downs, then Keeneland and an N2X allowance. And then you go from there, you go into a restricted stakes race at Churchill Downs. Came off the turf, so I am kind of just drawing a line through that one. The horse clearly had no interest in running over a sloppy track. He's done it twice in his career and got a 42 and a 0 buyer in those 2 races. So just draw a line through that last one for the 8. Biggest concern here is going to be the distance when you look back at everything, but then you notice the horse is 3-4 at the distance. Like you think maybe a mile is too short, but we're 3-4, so I'm going to kind of give it credit in that sense. So I'm going to go 2-5-8 on the dollar ticket and just the 2 and the 5 on the $5 ticket. I could make a pretty solid case for the 6, the 4, or the 3 as well. The 4 would be the next one in for me, but I understand why you want to use the 3 as well.
Yeah, I said the 4 would be the next one in. If either of the Safi horses scratches, well, let me rephrase this. If the 3 scratches, I'll put the 4, and if the 5 scratches, I'm definitely going to use the 2 because of the pace setup. But almost won twice at Saratoga in for higher tags over the summer. Johnny V is going to be riding, but like the 8, I'm worried it's too short. Now the 8, I'm going to say the horse is 2 for 3 at the distance because a mile at Kentucky Downs is closer to a mile and a half at Keeneland than it is a mile at Gulfstream Park. But I think the horse is going to be too far back at this distance, and with the 2 and the 5 going at it, I think he'll have too much to do. How is Saez, who is killing everything at Gulfstream, and Mike Maker, who's 24%? How are they 1 for 23 together in the last 2 years? That I don't understand that. That's one of those weird anomaly things where you see like, oh, Pratt and Mark Glad are 6% together, and you're like, but they shouldn't be. They should be a lot better than that. So it's just a weird. I didn't factor that into my handicap because at Saez and Mike Maker, we know who the hell they are and what they're good at. It just didn't. It's a weird little anomaly there. I didn't quite understand that.
Yeah, and that's just 1 for 23 at Gulfstream Park, right? That's just to clarify to make sure. Yeah, and they're for the 2 years, they're 19% over 246 sample size everywhere else. So it's just like it's specifically for some reason here at Gulfstream, the combination hasn't been hitting. Honestly, that just feels like a statistical anomaly to me more than anything else. I mean, Saez is clicking off at. It's funny. Like texting with like Dr. Tang and people like that, they're like, Saez is killing me this meet. He's not winning the races. He's 30%. Like it's wild he's winning that much, but you still feel like some of the horses he's riding aren't firing. He is on so many favorites right now at Gulfstream Park, or he was prior to this last week, where before the rest of the jockey colony showed up. It's just wild.
Yeah, and it's going to keep going. He only has Irad to deal with, at least right now on Wednesday. Let's move on. We'll look at the second leg here of the lay pick Phillips. There's the lay pick 5 at Gulfstream Park. Race 6 now, the first of 3 straight dirt races, and we're going to start with the bottom of the barrel. Literally, this is as far as it goes. 62.50 non-winners of 2 lifetime, a group of 8 fillies and mares 3 and up. Going to try a 7 furlong distance. Pretty tricky to try and do. The favorite is number 2, Demurely at 7-5. Where are you going on top?
Yeah, this is a mess of a race, man. I mean, look, the 2 is the best horse. I'm not sure 2 can go 7 furlongs, though. This horse has been giving it up, going 6 and 5.5 consistently. That extra half furlong could be a massive problem for Demurely, but you have a massive speed edge, by far the best numbers. I'm going to end up with the 6. She's a Gift on top, who I think is going to be the horse that has the best shot of closing into the 2 and passing down the lane. I have the 2 in second, but I think the 6 was the one that can kind of get the job done here. I like the fact that we pick up Sayas here. You go back and you look at the last race specifically, this horse, it says hop start 2 wide. The horse had an awful trip there. Like nothing went right for the 6. She's a Gift. And when you're this level of a horse, when anything goes wrong, your race is over. You need everything to go right, but for any of these, for them to be able to win. I like the fact that we're coming out of mile races before that 7 furlong race. We're 0 for 3 at the distance, but at least have a second place, which I think is nice. And while this horse is wildly inconsistent, there are numbers in the back that at least compete with the 2 horse. I think that's the key there, especially if I think the 2 horse is going to slow down. The one time that the one time on the sheet, at least, one of the times the 2 went 7 furlongs after the layoff here in 2022 as a 3-year-old, the horse backed up pretty bad. And that to me is the key here, running a 13-second final furlong, ends up getting a 61 buyer, which is better than anyone else in here going this type of distance. But I really don't want to put the 2 on top here when I'm worried about that last furlong.
Yeah, I didn't touch the 2. I left the 2 off. It feels like at this kind of a level, a horse like this is just going to beg you to burn money like she did her last 2 starts. I want to hype up. The 6 was also my top pick here. And for a reason, along with what you mentioned, if you missed it, last week, Aaron Halterman put out this great video on our YouTube channel called How I Learned to Bet Horse Racing. It goes through and talks about some of the things he learned, recommends some books if you're trying to learn or to improve your handicapping. And one of the things that he talked about learning from Kelly von Hiemel was watch what trainers do when a horse breaks their maiden in for a tag. And Aaron's in the background, so you can tell me if I screw this up. But if I remember correctly, you want to see a trainer bring that horse back at about half that price at which it broke its maiden for, if you want it to be still competitive when they're facing winners for the first time. This horse broke her maiden for 12.5. She should have returned for half that amount, which is 62.50. She comes back, she goes for 20, 4 straight races for 12.5. She's finally back at the level where she belongs. And I think that's going to be a huge part of why, she's going to take a step forward or should take a step forward. And by the way, Luis Saez is picking things back up. He's only winning at 30%, though. I don't know if that's good enough, but I'm going to trust him at 30%.
You hit the nail on the head with the maiden claimer to claimer level. Generally speaking, if you're in for $40,000 maiden claimers, $20,000 claimers is the kind of the level that you are at or that you're facing. And so you can make an argument that when they win like a $25,000 maiden, a $30,000 maiden, and they bring them back protected, or they move them up the ladder because they think the horse is talented or the horse is on the improve. That's a case where you can say, okay, maybe this is a little different, or I'm willing to take a shot there. When you go from 12.5 and then you show back up for 40, I mean, that's just wildly aggressive. I like that's multiple jumps up the class ladder at that point, especially first time out against winners, which is one of the toughest things to do in horse racing.
You and our good buddy Michael Osen, you have the agreement on 2-6 here. I did have the 6 on top. I got 2 others I'll go through real quick. I did use the 3 raising the glass at 9-2. Simply all 3 dirt starts at this level. 3 back, almost won. 2 starts back. Something went wrong. I'm scratching that off, and I say something went wrong because you see the claim got voided. Something probably was bleeding afterwards, but you notice they came back. You can't really drop, but there wasn't a big gap in the time off. And then actually last time out, passed horses to get second with a 7-pound bug boy aboard. I think, that's going to be to help the horse move forward. You notice that the 4 also has a bug boy, and I'm going to use her as well. 12-1. I'm getting a great price on a horse that's 8 for 16 in the money on Gulfstream Park dirt with 5 runner-ups. At this level, you got to reach for something. I'm reaching for that. And I think that with the 10-pound allowance, this is a horse that's shown that she will pass horses. Even if they're tiring, she will pass horses. And maybe that 10-pound allowance helps move her forward. Morales is still looking for the first career win. Hey, 62.50 now, is it to lifetime? Get it done here.
Yeah, why not, right? This is Pinchin's other horse, training the 6 as well, so it has 2 in here. This is the higher priced of the 2. Like the fact that we broke the maiden at a mile. And so now going to 7 furlongs, I think coming from off the pace is more beneficial. If you notice in the maiden breaking score, they're going a little bit slower up front. The 6 furlongs, they went fast, and this 4 was close to that pace. I think the key for the 4 here is to be comfortable mid-pack versus trying to be too close to that early leader so that you can get that big run in that last furlong when there's going to be some horses that are sucking some serious wind down the stretch here.
Yeah, this is one of those races. If I didn't bet it, I would rather watch paint dry than watch this race. But we're betting it, so I'll have my eyes glued closely. The third leg of the late pick 5 at Gulfstream Park on Wednesday, December 14th, race 7. We've got another field of 8. These are 3-year-old maiden fillies protected, going a 1-turn mile on the dirt. The favorite is the number 6, Liana B for John Kimmel. And hey, Luis Saez, where'd you go on top?
This one was interesting to me. I went back and looked at a lot of the different pedigrees in this race. I went back and looked who we ran against, and I ended up with Liana B on top here. If you go back and you look at that Belmont race, a horse named Union Lake came out of that race, won that start. She ended up in multiple graded stakes eventually, won her next race, has been very competitive at much higher levels than this. I love the speed and fade against better, and that Belmont maiden special weight was significantly better than this field. So I think Liana B makes the lead and could be very, very, very tough out front. This is another reason why I'm not going crazy here from a depth perspective. I think the morning line is pretty accurate to who is the most likely winners here, and so I'm not going to go crazy. However, I do like the 4, Dreamster quite a bit in this spot for Mary Leitner. Get Gaffley on a board. I went back and watched the replay on this one, and this was a very educational race for a trainer that doesn't put a ton of starters out there. She's 5 for 21 on the year, 24%, 1 for 4 at the Gulfstream meet. She's 1 for 3 with second-time maiden starters here. The horse has been working well. You go back and you look at that maiden 40 optional that this horse debuted in. Adios Baby destroyed that field on the front end. But Dreamster didn't get the best start, ended up breaking almost last in that, kind of hopped a little bit at the start, clearly learning something, made a nice middle move around the outside, around the turn, was 3 wide the whole way, kind of tracked up to within about a length of Adios Babe, but then just burst away from everyone. You could tell that the start and kind of the first time out for Dreamster really got to her. Second time out, I think she's going to be a lot better. And I think she's got a chance to be a decent horse here. Mentally, what she did in the first start, I think, was pretty good. With a bad start, still able to kind of track up by herself, and then just got tired. So I'm hoping second time out we get a better version of Dreamster. So I'm going to go with the 4 and the 6 here as the must-uses. They're the only 2 I'm using in both my $1 and $5 ticket.
Agree with you on the 4 I use. I'm going to try and beat the 6 here in this spot, and this might come back to bite me in the ass. That's twice I'm trying to beat Saez. Well, if I do it 70% of the time, it's fine. It's that other 30% that'll kill you. I'm going to go with the real horse, Rita Marga on top, 4-1. I think she might be a little sharp, cutting back from routing, returning to dirt. It'll be her 3rd start off of the layoff, but I also like the fact that on debut, going 7 furlongs, a very tricky distance for any horse, let alone debuting. We ran a pretty nice second to Gratitude, which is a Todd Pletcher horse. It was 3-5 favorite and was coming off of her career debut when she missed to Kathleen O by a neck. So if you're less than 3 lengths behind a horse that was within the neck of Kathleen O, who was just an absolute monster at this point last year at Gulfstream, to me, that's a pretty good sign. I think the dirt is her better surface. Some things went wrong when she tried going a little bit longer, but now we cut back to 6 furlongs. You see Vasquez was aboard her last 2 starts. They were on synthetic, but I think that the way that she ran in that debut race, Mike, I think she is better on dirt, and any kind of progression from those synthetic buyers puts her right in the mix. Vasquez to me fits her better than no offense to Chantel Sutherland, but I think probably is a better fit for the horse. I'm also going to use the 3. She's awesome for Steve Klesaris. I don't love the horse, was in for a maiden 40 tag, and it was an off-turf race at Backwaduct, but that effort at Delaware Park last time out, not usually an ankle I play, but Arrogant Lady is someone that I saw that and I was like, oh, I know who that is. That's a Christophe Clement horse. There's a $300,000 daughter of Arrogate, was 1-5 to win that race and looked like it. But again, a horse that was within 3 lengths of her, when she probably doesn't belong to be within 3 lengths. The same angle I used with the one with the horse with Kathleen O. I'm going to use her, set 2 back, got second by a neck over a horse that was a next out winner, got a 72 buyer. It was turf sprinting that Lady Firefoot won, but she did beat a next out winner who got a 72 buyer. The 3-1 price, last time out, God, when we were 21-1, 28-1, I'm not going to get the price like that here, but maybe she gets ignored a little bit. I'm not sure.
My major issue with the 3, and I looked at this race quite a bit as well. I thought this was another kind of tricky race. I don't think the 3 is the fastest horse, and the 3 doesn't want to pass anybody. And so it's one of those horses where if the 3, She's Awesome, doesn't get the lead, I don't know how she wins this race. And I don't see her getting the lead with both the 5 and the 6 in here. I think the 6 is by far the fastest horse. The 5 also has some early turn of foot and probably wants to send here as well. So when you put both of those into the race, I think it's tough for the 3 to be able to get the job done. I did think the 1 was a little bit interesting. And I looked there for a while. That 5 furlong synth effort was good. That's the kind of trip you're going to need here from Rita Marga. And I kind of like the name as well. I think this one's just kind of cut below. And again, this is why I kind of ended up going shorter in some of these legs, because I didn't want to keep adding horses for just the reason of adding horses. I thought Mystical Journey to 7 was a little bit interesting for Cassie coming in here. This is a $200,000 daughter of Curlin. But again, I couldn't get to this horse when I'm looking at horses like the 6 and the 4. And the 6 I thought was really interesting. I don't know if you dove into the family, but Chocolate Brown is the dam. She's a pretty darn good dam. She's had 12 foals run 142 times, and her foals are winning 21% of the time. That's darn impressive from a dam to have that many foals with that large of a sample size and to win at that rate. 3-year-olds specifically are 12 for 39 with a 30% win percentage for this dam.
Do you know why the main reason that is?
There was one horse who was very good.
No. It's actually related to the banner at the bottom. If you're watching on YouTube, the owner breeder, Dennis Drazen, owns and runs Monmouth Park, always gave his horses to Jason effing Service. Jason Service is the reason that dam has such wonderful stats here. Because if you look at the horses once they were claimed away or moved away from Service, they fell right off the cliff there. So that for me was a big sign. Like, ooh, yeah. A, I don't want to support Drazen because screw that guy. But B, the family's got that great history, like you're mentioning, but that was running juiced up, dirt rags at Monmouth Park most of the time. So Liana B might be better than that. Kimmel's not. I'm not going to say that. I don't know Kimmel. I'm not going to say he's anything like Service. He's only 17%, so he must not be. And you brought up the fact that she faced a really great horse in Union Lake last out. But for all those reasons, I'm just going to pass on her. But she could beat me because size is hopping back aboard.
They weren't all Service. I just looked back at them. There was quite a few in there. I'll give you that. There were definitely quite a few in there. I like how someone noticed the banner for the first time down there. Magic changes the banner every single show, and he puts some thought into it too. You got to make sure you read those when we're going.
It's usually whatever's pissing me off that day or recently usually gets put down in the banner. So yeah, it's a little fun Easter egg. Thank you, Car Ramrod, for pointing that out. Let's move on. The penultimate take a shot leg of the Magic Mike Show, late pick 5 at Gulfstream Park on Wednesday, December 14th. Race 8. Another field of 8 3-year-old fillies. They're going a 1-turn mile on the dirt, just like the last race, but they're not maidens. It's the N1X allowance level. And this is the race I talked about before we at the start of the show. 2 Todd Pletchers, 1 from his former assistant, Jonathan Thomas, and they're 2-1, 5-2, 3-1. After that, you're getting a big price. Where'd you go on top?
It's pretty tough to get around any of those 3, though. When you go through this field, I mean, the 8's a little interesting. You maybe can make a case for the 7 if you really want to. But it's tough to get around these top 3 horses. I went with the 4 Avow on top simply because I think this is all about the trip here. I think Avow gets a nice stalking trip, second off a layoff, $300,000 daughter of Arrogate. Those first 2 efforts are both just impressive. I mean, if you go back and you watch the replays, this horse was dominant, never really asked at any point, was able to make these sweeping moves and just keep on going down the lane. So I thought those were both very nice. I like the fact that we're 2 for 2 over this Gulfstream Park track as well. There's no issue there. The mile should not be even a little bit of an issue. Warfront mare. So this horse should want every bit of that extra distance. And like I said, gets the setup. My other big issue here, because I like the 5 Send For Me in second. I'm a little concerned about what race that 5 horse came out of at Aqueduct. If you go back and you look who the 5 absolutely blitzed in that race, there's not a ton there. And I like Jonathan Thomas, obviously having Saez aboard and having the controlling speed are both huge advantages here going a mile at Gulfstream Park. But you just you go through that race and there just wasn't much there. But I like that last workout. Like I said, I like Jonathan Thomas. So I went with the 4 on top because the setup, I like the 3-1 price more than the 2-1 or 5-2 you're seeing from the other 2 here. I think this is a 3-horse race. You kind of have to make a call. So on the $5 ticket, I just singled the 4 and said, hey, if I'm right here, let's move along. Let's keep this thing rolling. And on the $1 ticket, I went 4-5 because I do respect the controlling speed, although I'm a little concerned that was a light race.
I'm with you on the 4, and she's exiting a couple of Florida bred races, and sometimes Florida bred into open companies, not a a really good mover, something you want to support, but she was destroying those. And Florida bred horses aren't terrible, so it's not like she was beating up on complete rough, or she was being complete donkeys. I love the fact I went with both Pletchers here, and for me, Aval got the edge because she's second off of the layoff. I know it's Pletcher. I know he can fire them off the layoff with no issue, but he is better second off 29% than he is first off the layoff 21%. The sixth, Liam's Kiss, was facing some good horses. Lost on debut to Poema, who's going to be in this race and is possibly going to give the 5 some pace pressure up front, and that's one of the reasons I left the 5 off of my ticket. Also, last time we saw her, she was a very distant second, a fading second, but she was routing to Nostalgic. Nostalgic went from that race and won the Grade 3 Gazelle, which was a major prep for the Kentucky Oaks, and then she went to the Oaks after that. Now, the Oaks didn't go well for her for a multitude of reasons, but a very good horse to be finishing second behind. I think that cutting back to this 1-turn mile is going to be perfect for her. Sire, Liam's Map, a perfect 4-for-4 at a mile, including 3 times at 1 turn. All of those for Todd Pletcher. So I'm going to roll with her, roll with the 2 Todd Pletchers. I also use a third horse. I'm going to throw in a price, the 8 Three Witches. And this is the last horse that made my ticket because I could afford to go a little deeper. I think the horse maybe need a little bit of a race off of the layoff. We debut in July, get the win from off the pace. Come back 7 furlongs, a little tricky, probably needed the race, but now we're back here again, going a mile. I'm slightly worried that Zayas, who's Safi's top rider usually at Gulfstream Park, he's staying with the 4, but you look at the 4, you can understand why he's staying with the 4. And Tyler Gaffleone's a replacement rider. He's pretty damn good, especially with Safi Joseph. I think you and I, with the Tyler Gaffleone, Safi Joseph horse at Gulfstream Park, had some fun last year. So I'm going to roll with the 8 Three Witches at 8-1. If I can get 8-1, I think that's really solid value.
Yeah, Three Witches is the one that I could make a case for. Peoma, I think, is just up against it here. I think that the 3 has races in the back that would fit with this field, but this is just a really tough spot considering the rest of the pace in here. My issue with Three Witches, I like the draw because I like sitting outside as clearly the 3rd fastest horse and having some speed. I'm not sure that Three Witches is better than Aval from coming off the pace or as fast as Paloma or Send to Me from being on the pace. And so you're kind of in one of those situations where you're going to have to take a pretty big step forward. However, you mentioned, Aval facing State Bred, both of those races for Three Witches against Open Company. So taking less of a step up in that sense there. That last race was first off the layoff. You could make a pretty good argument. You're going to see something better second off the layoff here. Horse did sell for $350,000 at auction. So there clearly was some talent, although it is E5, so you never know. There clearly is some talent here for Three Witches. So I don't hate to use it 8-1. I think you're going to have to get 1 or 2 of the others not to fire for this one to win. But this would be the most logical other horse in my mind.
Shots fired at Tyler Gaffleone's in-laws, by the way. E5 Racing Thoroughbreds. All right, let's move on, Mike. The not penultimate. Whoops, I screwed myself up there. The 5th and final leg of the late pick 5 at Gulfstream Park on Wednesday, December 14th. Race 9. We're back on the turf. It's a 5 furlong sprint. Another field of 8. Fillies and Mares 3 and up. 9 winners of 2 lifetime. In for $35,000 tags. You see the 2 is taking the $5,000 weight allowance break there. The favorite is the 1 tweaked at 2-1. You and I both love this horse. Talk about her.
I actually thought this race was difficult, but I ended up liking the favorite the most. And so I decided the best thing to do here was to try and single. Look, that race 2 back, Trained to Artemis, Crowding Out, both very good turf sprinters up in New York. Crowding Out was in the Brown Barn, got claimed out of there, went to the Breen Barn, ran very well in that spot. Trained to Artemis, very good horse up there at New York right now. That race 2 back rocks this field. I mean, just rocks it. The question is if we can return to it or not. I like the setup here. I think Saya's on the rail is a good draw. You're going to have tactical speed, but not go right to the lead in a race where you've got 2 horses in the 6 horse Royally Blue and the 8 Babies dialed in, who both are going to want to be on the front end. I think you're going to get enough pace in that sense. I think Saya sits a perfect rail trip here. And this is a massive, massive class drop in my mind. I realize that, we were in for the tag for 54 back. This claiming 35 is well below that level at Saratoga. That was over the dirt. The turf, clearly the better surface here as well. The 3 is interesting with Never Say, but man, I mean, that horse can be a very short price. And I'm not sure that horse really wants to win that much. If you go back to the numbers it ran with Wesley Ward, they tried to get this horse to be a winner at Saratoga and Aqueduct. It couldn't get the job done, then goes to Turfway to break the maiden, sprints at Indiana Grand, unable to get the job done as the favorite, and then switches barn and heads to Saratoga. Just a lot of warts on that. And I don't want to touch it, where I think this horse is probably the one that gets bet down.
I'm totally with you, both with the 1 and with the 3. No offense to Bill Mott. This is not a Bill Mott horse. This is like if you see a dirt sprinter with Steve Asmussen that can't get the job done and they send it to Bill Mott. Like, what the hell is Mott going to do? Like, no offense to Mott, but that is not his bread and butter. He's only 10% with turf sprints. And if Wesley Ward, whose actual bread and butter is 2- and 3-year-old turf sprinters, couldn't get the job done with this horse, it's really lots of red flags here. Lots of red flags. So we passed on her. I went too deep. I was looking for a little bit of a price. Landed on the 8, Babies Dialed In. Edgar Zayas riding for Will Deaton. Drops back down for a tag for the first time since her debut. And yes, she was in for 16K, but White Gate to Wire won pretty easily. And the fact that we've never been even considered to be dropped ever since then, and that was 13 months ago, is a good sign to me. I think she was great on the turf the first time she tried it. This was at Tampa Bay Downs, and I know last show we were going, Tampa form is screwy as hell. That's true. But it was a very high-level race for Tampa Bay Downs. So it's like the one time you're like, well, maybe that was the feature event at Tampa, the optional claimer 75K N1X. Almost gets the job done. Hasn't been as competitive since then, but the race at Gulfstream, she got stuck a little wide. I'm hoping we don't have that same situation here with Zayas, that she's a little more forwardly placed. The 3 times she was more forwardly placed early is when she was competitive. So we're back on the turf. 15% for the trainer turf sprinter. Not many stats to go off of, including this kind of a layoff like that. So not really sure what to think, but I'm getting a good price at 10-1. And for me, I was between the 8 and the 6 really about where to go. And when I saw the 8 was going to be twice the price at 10-1, and I have a little slightly better feeling about the 8 to begin with, that's where I landed. The 6 for me, it's just a question of like, is this horse going to like turf? And do you want to pay 5-1 to find out in this race in the last leg if this horse is going to like turf when Palace is an 8% turf sire and not a good angle that way? I don't know. I went with the 8 instead of the 6.
Yeah, I jumped into some of the sire stats here when I was looking at this race, and Palace was one of those horses that I clicked on. You mentioned 8% turf sprinting sire. That is not wonderful. The 8 to me is really intriguing because if the 6 doesn't go, the 8's lone speed here, going 5.5 or 5 furlongs over Gulfstream Park's turf course, which is wildly dangerous. I also think this is a send spot from the outside where Zayas has to say, hey, I'm just going and I'm trying to make the rail by the turn. And if so, we'll see how this ends up, right? So I think the 8's a sneaky good pick there from you. I wouldn't be shocked if the 8 gets the lead. And if anything happens to the 6, this 8 is wildly dangerous here with Babies Dialed In because there's not a ton of other pace in here. A couple horses I want to quickly mention here because I think they're a little interesting. The 7 horse Love My Job. We mentioned kind of Aaron's thing. Okay, if you break your maiden at 25,000, you should be at 12.5. We're stepping up to 35,000 here. I still think this one's a little interesting here. If we can repeat that last race over the synthetic onto the turf, Love My Job makes sense here at 6-1. This is owned by the Atler or Alters, who also Happy Alter also trains this horse. So they're keeping this horse protected or moving it up, I should say. No one's going to claim it for 35, really keeping it protected in a lot of ways. It tells me that they kind of like this one. This is one that they claimed for 40 at Gulfstream Park. If you go back to the turf races at Gulfstream and at Gulfstream Park, all of those races were competitive as a 3-year-old early in the season, and now we're later in the 4-year-old season, and we're seeing this horse progress. If we go back onto the turf and are able to improve a little bit here, the 7 fits at 6-1. You get Gaffney on the board. Then how about a little crazy one here? The 5 horse Barracuda. Okay, this one's a little nutty at 20-1 for Blake Kelly. Also owns the horse and trains it. 1 for 38 this year. I get it. Okay, he's 3 for 13 in the money so far. Bridgman gets them out. He is 1 for 29 at Gulfstream Park so far. But look at the workout 3 back. Flips a 46 and change workout, the only turf workout that's shown, and then comes back just on what was that? The 8th would have been Thursday. Does a 3 furlong turf blowout for this horse. I realize we have to improve, but we faced much, much tougher a lot of our career, like been ridiculously like 4-1 once in the career, never below 15-1 outside of that. And only once have we been below 25-1. So wildly overplaced horse who is getting back with horses that may actually be his level of competition. And you have a couple workouts that point to the fact that we may run first off the layoff here as well. So I wouldn't be shocked if Barracuda outruns the odds. I'm not sure he wins, but I wouldn't be shocked if this is a good one to use underneath because I think that 20-1 looks more like 35-1 on race day, and I expect that horse to outrun 35-1.
You know what? I think the horse will outrun it. Also in for a tag for just the second time, and the only other time was at Kentucky Downs and for 30K. But that was by that point the horse has just lost all hope in life. I mean, ninth beaten 15, seventh beaten 19, 10th beaten 8, 8 beaten 8. Like it's always just losing massively. But if you go back to 2 years ago when the horse broke the maiden at Fairgrounds, or the race before at Indiana Grand almost broke the maiden, those 5.5 furlong turf sprints, they fit. And what worries me about this horse is if we return back to those races, now you've got the 8 is going to be pressed. So there goes my play with the 8. So that kind of screws that up. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but you do bring up a great point. You got to worry about that. And then, whatever the hell the 6 is going to want to end up doing in here. Ooh, Barracuda. Nice Heart song. That was always my dad's favorite song by the band Heart. So that's where that name comes from. But yeah, we both love the tweet. You singled all over the place, right? The Rail Horse.
Yeah, I singled in both tickets. Like I didn't want to sit here and I would probably be going, if I spread this ticket out, I go 1, 3, 7, 8. And I didn't think there was enough value in going 1, 3, 7, 8. I don't really want the 1 and the 3 both on the ticket. I don't think there's a high enough probability that the 7 or 8 wins that it makes it worthwhile comparatively to what I think the percentage. I think the 1 wins. And so for me, again, I felt like this whole sequence was, look, I like some of these favorites. I want to figure out which ones I think are beatable and take small shots, because I think the horses that are most likely to beat them are also correctly priced. And so when you're in that type of situation, the best route to take is not to throw on shots that you want to take with these 20-1 shots. Is to play that ticket for more times and try and hit it for 10 times or 12 times, which is what I'm going for, the $1 and $5 ticket.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Magic Mike Show. Thanks for joining us for this nice little midweek Wednesday, December 14th preview. We'll go ahead and give it our tickets one last time for the podcast listeners. You can take a look down below if you are watching on YouTube, and you're going to want to, because Mike's got 2 different tickets, so just make sure you get everything correct. Go head over to YouTube real quick and check it out. At least if you listen to the podcast, go check out the end of the video. We've got it posted here. I will start off. I'm going to go 3-5 with 3-4-6 with 1-3-4 with 4-6-8 with 1-8. That is $54 for 50 cents, Mr. Somich.
I'm going to play 2 tickets. I'll play a $1 ticket, 2-5-8 with 2-6 with 4-6 with 4-5 with 1. That'll cost you $24 for $1. And then I'm going to go back and play a $5 ticket, 2-5 with 2-6 with 4-6 with 4 with 1. That'll cost you $40 for $5. So $64 total investment here.
I want to bring up this question from Carrama. It's a good question in general, but also pretty poignant, because on weekends when there really isn't much happening, which I think this might have been one of the last ones we'll have for the next 6 months. We do these midweek shows. It's a great way to spice things up and sharpen the handicapping tools. Car Ramrod says, do you guys like playing these midweek cards more than, say, a stakes card on a weekend? The veteran Car Ramrod likes the variance of the midweek, which especially Gulfstream is going to happen. The fan in Car Ramrod loves seeing the big horses run. I'll answer first. I mostly play on the weekends. I follow all the big races. So for me, it's definitely the latter. But Mike, I know you're a little bit different there.
Yeah, I like the midweek cards more. I like Wednesday and Thursday Gulfstream. I think it's some of the best money-making opportunities. I like the Wednesdays and Thursdays at Saratoga. I think those are some of the better money-making opportunities, for the simple reason that I think horses get mispriced more during the week than they do over the weekend, because there are lower levels, which are harder for people to dissect. The pools are also a little bit smaller, which I do think matters, because when those singles go down in those smaller pools, you have less tickets that are alive. So it sets it up where you can string together 9-2 shots and get a $5,000 pick 5, because you have horses that get hammered down at 3-5, even money, 4-5 in some of these races that are just really hard to get around. And if those horses are ill priced and they all lose, you can beat 4 of those in a sequence. It pays a lot, because one of those horses was everybody's singles on days like Wednesday. On Saturdays, you get bigger tickets, you get bigger bets, you have bigger pools. I think those are probably better priced, because you have more consistency from that level of horse that you're seeing on Saturday versus from seeing $6,500 claimers, or I had a nice Wednesday last week at Gulfstream because of a couple synthetic races. Almost was a nice Thursday because of a couple synthetic races where I think horses were just simply misbet. That happens to me more on the weekdays than it does on the weekend, just because I think people struggle with these type of races. Specifically, maidens and lower level claiming races are generally where people suck. That's where you're able to then make some money. And those are the races that you see on Wednesdays and Thursdays more than Saturdays.
You can also be like our good buddy Michael Olsen. He hit the late pick 4 Saturday. They ended in Feza barely winning the Starlet Stakes at Los Al. But if you got a short price Baffert there and 2 legs before, you've got a short price Baffert maiden that should win by a lot, and again, almost didn't. That $10 lay pick 4, it can come in handy. I'm glad you survived that, because those Baffert races should have been more blown out than they were, but you got the win. That's all that matters. You can cash the ticket. So we all have different preferences. I know you and Aaron, you appreciate the variance of the weekday stuff, because of, especially you and Dr. Tang playing tournaments. By the way, shout out to Dr. Tang. He's already excited to be back at BCBC next year. He's also excited, Mike, because it's in Santa Anita and not Kentucky, and he lives like 5 minutes away from Santa Anita. A little bit of a shorter flight for him. Yeah,
the $500 travel budget goes a long way when you live 5 minutes away from it.
I asked him if he was, so Dr. Tang, for people who don't know, is a longtime listener and a close friend of ours. He recently, he and his wife recently had their second child. And I was like, okay, so you're still getting a hotel, right? And he's like, no, why would I do that? I was like, because you're going to try to win the BCBC with 2 toddlers at home. His response, which was very great, was, I just won the BCBC spot with 2 toddlers at home. Why would I switch it up? You know, that's a good point. As somebody who's winning those, I'll let him.
I'm gonna out Dr. Tang. I think the older ones with the parents, and they've got a live-in nanny for a month too. So I'm not so sure he won that seat with both of them.
Yeah. Get out of here, Doc. Go back to solving cancer. Stay out of here. What are you doing? No, that's pretty good. Thanks everybody for joining us. We're gonna get out of here. We'll be back on Thursday for our regular show at 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific, covering what Magic likes, which is the weekend Saturday stakes races. But yeah, and then that will be my last appearance, or no, probably that next Monday. So I've got 2 shows left, and then I'm off for the holidays, but it'll be a fun time. Make sure you join us on Thursday. And then, oh wait, I'm sorry, it's Monday. Let's talk about Monday Night Football. Mike, what are you thinking about tonight's game?
Man, it's what we got. New England at Arizona tonight.
Yep.
I'm going to take the dog. Give me Arizona here with the points. To me, this is one of those spots where New England struggled with rushing quarterbacks all season long. You saw it against Justin Fields. They've struggled against Josh Allen. That's what Arizona does and has. They don't have that much else going for them right now, but this is 2 mediocre teams. I think Arizona is the better of the 2 mediocre teams, especially since they are the kryptonite to this defense on the New England side as a running quarterback, and that's exactly what Kyler Murray can offer. So I'll take the points, and I'll take Arizona tonight.
Do you think Mac Jones will scream, throw the effing ball at any point during the game? Will he be that obsessed or upset because they're just doing like the old run and gun style?
This is a defense that New England could have some success against. I wouldn't be shocked if you see a couple points in this game either, because this is like Arizona's defense isn't very good, and New England's defense struggles generally against Arizona's style of offense. So it's a good matchup for the over and for points. I bet they wing it a little bit tonight. Mac Jones actually looked better the last couple games than he had prior to that. So I bet they wing it a little bit for New England tonight.
The one thing that worries me, you don't want to poke an angry bear that's not having a good year like Bill Belichick. And I saw Arizona's D coordinator said that it's the reason New England's having these offensive issues is because Bill Belichick, in his infinite wisdom, somehow is letting Matt Patricia call the offensive plays. Now, if you don't remember, Matt Patricia had an amazing offensive experience at the Super Bowl when, as the defensive coordinator for the Patriots, he allowed a record amount of yards to be thrown all over them in that loss. And then he became the Detroit Lions head coach, and that went even worse. So why is he calling plays?
He's the D coordinator in Arizona isn't wrong. I mean, the fact that they don't have an actual offensive coordinator is wild to me. I mean, it's just the blind leading the blind on the offensive side of the ball. But I think Belichick wants control, and he knew that putting Patricia there gave him complete control over everything. That's why he ended up doing it. How I don't disagree with this statement. I mean, this is like a dude playing like this is like NFL coaching versus like 5th grade elementary school pee-wee football coaching. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury is a train wreck. He couldn't win at Texas Tech with Mahomes. Thinking that he's going to be able to handle this year is wild. But I'm going to take the quarterback edge there because I do think Kyler is better. This I don't know. Are you watching Hard Knocks in season?
No, I always forget that it happens in season.
It's the first year they've done it. So and they're doing it around Arizona.
Oh, okay.
Which is interesting because Cliff Kingsbury is an awful like watching that. I'm like, yeah, no, this guy shouldn't be a coach. This is a bad idea. Like, nope, we shouldn't be doing this. And you see Kyler Murray, and the guy just does not give a bleep. Like, he does not care about it at all, which is very concerning, but also makes you understand why they tried to add you need to watch film in your contract, because he clearly does not care about the actual football part of this. He should have played baseball. Like, I 100% believe he should have just played baseball. Would have been much better for him. Would have got paid a ton of money. He was a top 10 draft pick. And you don't need to actually study film or figure out defenses or learn to read anything. All you got to do is hit the damn ball.
Fun fact about Cliff Kingsbury. Former quarterback of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers of the Canadian Football League. The last season of football he ever played as a player, he was the second or third string quarterback for the Blue Bombers there. Wasn't Cliff Kingsbury supposed to be like the quarterback guru, like the young guy that all the quarterbacks loved, and they were, oh man, we're gonna get along and all be best friends, and me and Baker Mayfield, man, we're so good together. Yeah, I don't think that worked out too well for either one of them.
How many coaches that are like, hey, I'm gonna be your best friend are also good NFL coaches?
That's true. There's a saying about what is it? To the most successful people in business tend to be the biggest dicks because you almost have to be. Nobody ever says Bill Belichick's a nice guy. The players afterwards like, oh, he's got a sense of humor sometimes. Like that's what they say about him. That's supposed to be nice. So, yeah. Listen, I'm glad that you like him. I hope that makes you feel nice and comfy and cuddled up when you're, spending every off season not playing football or every playoff not playing football.
Well, I think a big part of it is conviction and belief, right? You have to have a certain conviction and belief that you are correct, both in business and in sports, and that you are doing the right thing. And that can often rub the other people the wrong way, especially in a situation like an NFL team where you have these highly paid quarterbacks who have been the best athlete at every single level and have always been incredible and always been catered to because of that talent. You get to the NFL, that can rub the wrong way with certain people. But if you set it up properly, if you have that conviction, you're able to then somehow make sure you still connect with those quarterbacks, those other players, and your employees in the business side. That's where you can kind of see everything gel and go, well, it really comes down to this. Look, you can be a dick if you're winning. And that's where Belichick comes in, right? Where he's like, I can run the shop any way I damn well please because we've won so many Super Bowls and had so much success. Andy Reid is the one who I'd be interested in. He may actually he seems like he's an entertaining guy. You never hear anyone come out and say anything against him either. And then you see him in the commercials and you actually get a little chuckle about it too. So Andy Reid would be the one coach where I bet he actually does get along with some of his players. They really do like him. But yeah, it's a tough job. You have to have thick skin. You got to be able to piss people off and be okay with it.
There's an exception to every rule. That's what that means. Last comment before we got here. Chris Mando brings up Kingsbury in episode 1 of Hard Knocks readily admits he can't afford his 7,000 square foot house that I remember when they had the draft. Like he was there for the draft, 2 years ago? And it just was, it was one of those things where it looked beautiful, but it's also like it's one man. What do you need all of that space for? And how expensive is that cleaning bill each week? Like that can't be cheap either.
Well, he was outside in like it wasn't a rotunda, but it was like this structure with this grass out there too. The lawn cost must be wild. The water cost there to water that thing, keep it lush and green in Arizona, that can't be cheap. However, I got to say bullshit. He can afford that house. A 7,000 square foot house in Arizona can't be that expensive on an NFL coach's salary. Like he got the bag when he got hired.
It says he bought it for $4.45 million.
Yeah, there's no way he could totally afford that house.
Yeah, that's fine. I'd love to have that house. Not for that price point, but necessarily. I always, when I see that and it's in Arizona, I always think, all right, now what is that going to cost in Los Angeles? How many zeros are we adding to the end of that that's going to be in LA? Probably
a $20 to $30 million home in LA.
Yeah, and actually, there's a lot of those for sale. All the Beverly Hills celebrities, they're all putting their houses up for sale right now. So, hey, the market's hot right now. We're going to get out of here. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you come back on Thursday. Stay tuned. A little over an hour. Dudes Who Bet Sports. Papa Dude and Aaron going to recap all of the NFL action. And also Oakland Park. Now that Oakland Park is back in season, every show that they do a show twice a week in the afternoons. They're going to be Oakland focused. So that if you like to play Oakland, you've got two guys that know Oakland about as well as anybody that'll be talking about it. So tune in for that one. Until Thursday, make sure you join us then. You can follow me on Twitter at Curtis Kalleward. He's at Somobomb 18, number 8. Corporate Overlords at Racing_Dudes. I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
Good luck this week, guys.
The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.